Hey, yo, Pro Wrestling Podcast listeners, help us out and click subscribe to show your support. While you're at it, if you are a Facebook user, check out the Titans of Podcast and Wrestling fan group, which is a host of different podcasts, wrestling personalities, talk shows, and various tidbits that you may find very entertaining if you are a huge fan of professional wrestling, just like the Pro Wrestling Podcast family is. And speaking of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family, if you'd like to become a member of our sponsored Patreon page, go to patreon.com/Pro Wrestling Podcast to become a contributing member of the Pro Wrestling Podcast family. We would love to have you be a part of that. And anybody who joins the Patreon Pro Wrestling Podcast page, you will have your name included in shoutouts on all of our episodes. And if you happen to become one of our $50 a month contributors, we would love to have you on one of our Going Live at 9:05 episodes, Saturday nights, 9:05 Eastern Standard Time, every Saturday night for the Pro Wrestling Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Fro Podcast. We want to talk about all sorts of things, including the happenings coming out of Smackdown, and there are various news and rumors, issues, things coming up today from around the world of professional wrestling. Before I get going with all that, I do want to remind people the voting for the 256 Tag Team Tournament has just closed 2 minutes ago, and so our votes are in. I will announce the winners of our 256 Tag Team Tournament this Saturday night on Going Live at 9:05. So make sure you check that out. It'll be very cool to see who you guys picked. I have not looked at the votes, so I have no idea. While I'm on the topic of Going Live at 9:05, don't forget to shoot us a message through our Pro Wrestling Sound Off Talk to Text service hotline. It's 267-642-1160, where you can send us questions, comments, things you want us to discuss, go over, investigate, whatever it is. Feel free to give us those comments on the Sound Off line so we can get to as many of those questions, comments, and concerns as we can in our podcast episodes. And if you want to check out and see what topics we're going to be discussing on various Fro podcast episodes, go to frolifeplanning.com/Fro podcast, where you'll see a list of all the topics we plan on covering. Our interview series is there with links directly to our YouTube channel if you want to check out any of the interviews we've done recently, and any other news and tidbits that we can get you guys, as well as all of our sponsors are there, including the Black and Brave Wrestling Academy and the Wrestle Factory, both included on that page. Let's get started right away. We're going to talk about some Smackdown, because after watching Smackdown this week, I have a lot of confusion. And here's the thing. Smackdown, I think, since the brand split, has been the better brand, okay? I think their wrestling has been significantly better. I think the in-ring action is more of a purist standpoint. I think fans appreciate the opportunities that have been given to some of the newer talents on SmackDown, and that was all great for the first, I would say, 9 months of SmackDown. Then we saw a little bit of a change in SmackDown, I would say, in the last 2 to 3 months. And what I mean by that is that on SmackDown, we're starting to see the same problem that we have on Raw. Bad booking. And I don't mean just matching people up who don't work together. I'm talking about the same matches week in and week out with no creativity and no excitement. So this week, we're headed into the 4th of July episode. There was a big build-up that John Cena was coming to the show. John Cena did not wrestle on the show. He's been away since WrestleMania in April. We're now into July. It's time for John Cena to, if he keeps coming out giving us these promos talking about how he's not a part-timer, he's an all-timer, or whatever he was saying this week. Nonsense. You're as part-timer as there is. You come to the show and you don't even wrestle. Now, the truth is after the show went off the air, John Cena actually did have a match, but that doesn't help your television audience. And I'm not trying to be a jerk here. No offense to the people who paid money to get tickets to go into the arena, but those people knew that they would see John Cena wrestle. The people on television ratings are what drive the revenue from the networks to bring wrestling to their channel. They're what make WWE what they are. And if you don't give the people watching SmackDown the best quality in-ring action you can, they're going to turn the channel. And that's been the issue with Raw. Raw's ratings, if you go back 5 and then 10 and then 15 years, you look at them, they've progressively gone down on Raw. SmackDown has seen an increase, and that's because of the recent brand split last year, which has seen significant improvement in the SmackDown brand, but it's still not higher ranked than Raw. I think it beat it one time back in January in the ratings. Otherwise, SmackDown is still not a juggernaut of a wrestling program. Now, don't get me wrong, drawing 3 million people a week to 3 to 5 million people a week is great, but it's not like you're competing with American Idol or The Voice or America's Got Talent or, heck, the Steve Harvey Show. Like, you're not competing with those things when you're only bringing in 3 million people. You need to start doing something that really captures the eye of people who would like to tune into network television. And here's the thing. John Cena comes out. It's the first time since April. People were really excited to see him and wanted to see him in some kind of high-profile situation. And what we got was, instead of just having a John Cena moment, we have the return of Rusev. Now, don't get me wrong, I actually like Rusev, but John Cena versus Rusev has been done before. They wrestled at WrestleMania. John Cena is the one who ended his undefeated streak and all this other stuff. So putting John Cena and Rusev together again seems very fruitless. There's nothing there for you. Making the match a flag match at the at Battleground. It's the 4th of July. The match should have been held that night, immediately. John Cena versus Rusev, flag match on the 4th of July, and be done with it. By postponing it to the Battleground pay-per-view, you essentially gave John Cena nothing of substance to do on television after all that build-up of the big return. They showed all the video clips of him being on different talk shows and doing all the things he does outside of WWE. Well, therein lies the problem. Fans are sick and tired of hearing about his projects outside of wrestling. If you're a mainstream viewer, you probably are fine with that because you watch his movies, you watch different things that he does. You know, you see him on the morning talk shows. You see some of us, myself, I'm a big fan of American Grit. I think it's actually a pretty good television show. But I'm a wrestling fan first, and I want to see John Cena wrestle, not go out to the ring, have a 10-minute promo debate session with Rusev, and never get in the ring. I don't care that he teamed up with Nakamura after the show went off the air. I couldn't care less about that. If I'm not going to get to see it, why do I care? I want to see John Cena wrestle, and they didn't give that to us last night. So, I am very frustrated with that booking. Then you went into the match that blew my mind. AJ Styles and Chad Gable. Now, I'll be honest with you, just like Raw the other day, when I didn't break down every match, I'm not breaking down every match on SmackDown. If you tune into this podcast, you're a big fan. I believe in you, and I'm sure you've already seen the shows. What I am going to do going forward is I'm going to highlight the things that I think are very important to talk about. Styles and Chad Gable tore the house down. My opinion, this was... Look, I'm not saying this is Styles versus Nakamura. I'm not saying this is a Seth Rollins versus, like, Bray Wyatt caliber match. What I'm saying is that if you're WWE and you're looking to build a new star, you've got a really good route system of Chad Gable becoming a single star. Now, the concern is, what the heck are they doing with Jason Jordan? This is the second time that Chad Gable's had a high-profile match, and we're not seeing Jason Jordan do anything. So if you're looking to split up American Alpha, which at this point I wouldn't care if you do, they haven't done anything for 9 months. But if you're going to keep American Alpha together, stop doing the single stuff with Chad Gable and get back to the tag team scene. I think they're going to be... It seemed like they were building towards they were going to be the big reveal who were attacking the Fashion Police. But then we didn't even see Jason Jordan this week on the program. So I don't know what they're doing. But what I did see was mad respect from the fans, mad respect from AJ Styles, both for Chad Gable, who I think is really starting to turn some heads in WWE. And I hope that Vince McMahon, Triple H, Stephanie, whoever's in charge, can see the quality of talent that Chad Gable has. If Impact Wrestling and Ring of Honor can build their brands on unknown commodities, you know, let's face it, people didn't know who Adam Cole was till he became a star in Ring of Honor. People didn't know who Daniel Bryan was until he became a star in Ring of Honor. They didn't know who CM Punk was until he was in IWA Mid-South and then in Ring of Honor. Samoa Joe, you know what I mean? So if they can build their brands based on the backs of these talents that people have never heard of, why can't the biggest company in the world, Chad Gable, extraordinarily promising for the future, and I wish him nothing but greatness because I really enjoy his in-ring work. I want to talk about the Mojo Rawley and Zack Ryder issue. My concern here is WWE seems to be on like this dissension kick. Every tag team in the world seems to be having issues. Rawley and Zack Ryder aren't the only ones on SmackDown having issues right now, because, the reality is the Colognes are having some issues too, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But in this situation, Mojo Rawley, he goes several months without Zack Ryder and does nothing that matters other than win the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. Baron Corbin last year became a real player when he won that same Battle Royal. Mojo Rawley has done nothing that matters. Nothing at all. Zack Ryder, last year, not this past WrestleMania, the one before that, wins the Intercontinental Championship to hold it for a day or so, and then loses it to The Miz. He becomes a transitional champion, and then he gets buried in the mid-card again. Now, don't get me wrong, Mojo Rawley is no main eventer. I don't think his in-ring skill is worth being on the main roster. Zack Ryder, I highly disagree. Zack Ryder, I think, is fantastic in the ring, and I feel like he's somebody who keeps getting passed over. He has a great look, a great body, a great moveset. He connects with the fans. He knows how to use social media to bring in an outside audience, and for whatever reason, they refuse to push Zack Ryder in a meaningful way. Ever since he won the U.S. title years ago, they've buried him ever since. This clearly is headed for a breakup. I'm fine with that. You have the backstage segment on SmackDown where Mojo's talking about winning the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, Zack Ryder reminding him that he wasn't in that Battle Royal. And then in the Battle Royal to determine the number one contender to the United States Championship, Mojo is the one who eliminates Zack Ryder. I think this is building towards a Zack Ryder heel turn on Mojo. The concern I have is they want to build new stars so bad. I feel like they're going to bury Zack Ryder with Mojo Rawley, which is so the opposite of what they should do. Zack Ryder has paid his time. He deserves to be in a much bigger position. I want to move on to Lana and Tamina. Lana came out and she lost her third women's championship match in the same number of weeks in about 15 seconds. She's clearly not worthy of a world championship match. So here's my issue. Tamina comes out, and now Tamina makes her go with her to the back, and obviously they're setting up something where Tamina is going to mentor her in some way. But I just want to be serious. If WWE gave Tamina the credit she deserves for being the kind of in-ring performer that she is, she would have had a women's championship run by now, and she hasn't. So, what are they saying in this booking? Tamina is somehow going to cultivate Lana and change her character into something more forceful, more successful? How? Tamina's never even won the championship. How is she supposed to mentor anybody? And Lana, she had 3 women's championship matches already. How is it that Carmella has to win 2 women's Money in the Bank matches, be it as they may that they were shady wins? She still has to win 2 Money in the Bank matches to get a world title match, but Lana can walk in out of nowhere, no track record, no previous match history, and get 3 women's championships 3 weeks running. Makes no sense whatsoever. Why the heck would you go into a Money in the Bank match if you're one of these other 5 women and challenge in a Money in the Bank ladder match where you could get hurt, instead of just saying, I want a title match? Okay, we'll give you 3 of them. It's ridiculous. The booking doesn't make even a hair's bit of sense. And if you're talking about ratings and opportunity, Jesus, put Charlotte or put Becky Lynch or put somebody of that caliber in the women's world championship picture. Why has Natalya not walked around with that belt a lot more than she already has? You know what I'm saying? She deserves a run with the title. Naomi, look, let's face it, for the better part of 5 months, Naomi's been champion. So she's had her moment in the sun. I'm proud of her. I think she's a great talent. I'm happy that she got the women's championship. I think it says something for the women's revolution and for African-American athletes. I think it's great. But professional wrestling always sees a changing of the guard every so often. I think it's time. Move on to somebody else. Give it to Tamina Snuka. Why not? Give it to Natalya. Why not? No, we're going to wait and give it to Carmella, who's one of the younger female stars in the company. The others have paid their time. Give them the shot. Give them the belt. Now, I understand Charlotte had the belt several times on Raw, but Charlotte should have been the first person to hold the Raw and SmackDown Women's Championship over Alexa Bliss. I mean, give me a break. Charlotte created so much history with her run, and Alexa Bliss pretty much stood on the sideline for a majority of the year that Charlotte was tearing things down. So I'm going to get off the ladies thing because I get frustrated. I don't understand the booking. I want to move on to the Usos and the New Day. There was some controversy here because apparently the Usos went off script and hit Xavier Woods with the rated R comment in relation to his soiree with Paige that was leaked online earlier this year. I have no problem with them going off script from a fan standpoint, because if you're trying to garner the most attention online and mainstream media, then of course you go there because that's what sells. However, as a parent, as a father, as someone who watches the show with my son, I don't want him asking me questions about stuff like that. So I would have appreciated the Usos sticking to whatever was scripted for them. If I was WWE management, I'd be very angry with them today, and I'd take the tag titles off them immediately. As a matter of fact, I'd have had them lose the tag team championship to whoever the weakest tag team on the roster is. Give it to the Ascension. Send a message. You people need to stay on script when you're doing our show. I don't care how bad their booking is. You have a script, you stick to it, or you get punished. This is not a free market system. You're a contractor. You have a contract to do a job, do the job. Now, that all being said, the segment was hilarious. The Usos clearly out battle rapped the New Day. I thought the Usos actually sounded pretty solid. I was very impressed by that. So, very entertaining from the Usos. The New Day sounded so scripted it was terrible. But whatever, it is what it is. And lastly, for SmackDown conversation, AJ Styles and Kevin Owens, clearly they're going to have another go-around for the United States Championship. I don't know what WWE hopes to accomplish here. Obviously, KO's had the belt since WrestleMania. He's had a short run. I think at some point very soon they're going to take that belt away from him. AJ Styles is just as good a challenger as anybody else to take that belt. However, if you really want AJ Styles versus Nakamura at WrestleMania next year, if it's going to be for the World Championship, I think it would be a bad decision to put the U.S. title on him. If it's not going to be for the World Championship, then it makes a lot of sense for him to be U.S. champion, spend 6 months building that championship to the level that it was when John Cena held it, and then have him defend and potentially lose that championship to Nakamura at WrestleMania. I want to talk about some of the things on this peripheral in the wrestling world today. First off, D'Angelo Williams. For anybody who saw Slammiversary, I've never in the history of pro wrestling seen a better debut for a football player coming into pro wrestling. D'Angelo Williams looked like a 10-year seasoned vet. He was better at Slammiversary after 3 days of training. That has been verified. He only trained 3 days for his match, and he already looked 500 times better than Mojo Rawley has, who's been wrestling in WWE for a few years now. And D'Angelo Williams looked great. He looked like he was just a natural in the ring. High spots. He hit some great moves. And he talked to Adam Schefter of ESPN today on one of their interview segments, and he made it clear that his debut in professional wrestling was also his retirement from professional wrestling. That he didn't want it to be one of these horrible celebrity appearances. He wanted it to be solid, and it was. But what I think he may be missing is people are craving natural, raw, innate talent, and he has it. He has a lot of it. And, I'm sure he probably has aspirations of going back into the NFL. He's starting to get older as far as running backs are concerned. 34 years old is relatively old for a running back, but I know he still wants to go play. I know he can play at a very high level. But when that's all over, which is sooner rather than later, and it's not about the money, obviously, he's made tons of money in football. But if he really wants to have a great career that's rewarding, I hope he reconsiders his position on professional wrestling, because it is a sport that would really appreciate him, and the fan base would adore him for becoming a star, doing something in a whole different avenue than what he started. Much in the way they've embraced Matt Riddle, who used to be a mixed martial artist and now is a professional wrestler. They would love him. In other news, Bayley has talked on the Stone Cold podcast about potentially turning heel. That she had the idea about turning heel. She wanted to do that at one point. She went into Raw one night and was just fed up. And she said, no, I want to pitch this idea to Vince McMahon. And she made it clear in the podcast that that's what she would do. If she came up with an idea, she would take it directly to Vince, because Triple H has always encouraged her to take things to Vince to build a relationship with him. But when she saw all these kids dressed up like her and cheering and crying because they were so happy to meet her, she couldn't do it. Now, here's the thing. Bayley, we love you. We do. We know you're the hugger. We know you care. And it's obvious that you are emotionally connected to your fans, which is beautiful. Here's the problem. If you want those fans to truly continue to appreciate you, you need to do something to freshen up your character. The reality is simple. If you continue to be just the hugger and wear the same clothes and do the same thing every match, the fans eventually are going to get bored with you. If you don't remember, I'm going to give you a little bit of history. Emma originally was a goofball character who came out and was hanging out with Santino Marella, and people loved her, doing a goofy dance and waving her arms, and it took about 3 months before people were like, okay, I'm done with her. We don't want to see that happen to you, because you're actually incredibly in-ring talented. So please do something to freshen up. And if that means being a heel for a few months, yes, you'll make some of those girls cry in the short term. But here's the beautiful thing. When you flip back to being a babyface, they will indoctrinate you into the all-time great baby faces because they love you so much already. They'll get their hero back. And that's the part you have to remember. It's just like when Hulk Hogan went with the NWO. When he eventually at WrestleMania and wrestled The Rock and turned babyface again, nobody could ever have seen how much adoration he would have gotten from the fans. And it was beautiful. You could do something. I'm not saying on the Hulk Hogan level, but on a very high level, you can do that. New Japan Pro Wrestling has announced that they are going to continue with their North American expansion. They hope to have a dojo by 2018. They want to have an office set up sometime late 2017, early 2018 to continue their expansion. I think this is a great thing. Put some pressure on WWE. My only concern is I really want them to get a better network than Access Television. And don't get me wrong, I like Access TV. I think it's a great network, but a lot of people don't know about it. But if they got onto a premium network, a FX or something of that nature, who knows how popular they can get, because their in-ring product is significantly better than WWE's. And speaking of New Japan, there's a lot of backlash right now on Cody Rhodes because there are many talents and fans who think that he did not deserve to be in the G1 USA special against Okada for the championship. Now, I beg to differ. Now, here's the reality. I don't care what the fans wanted. You know, and WWE doesn't give the fans what they want, and they're the biggest company in the world. Sometimes the fans don't know what they don't know. Cody Rhodes has been everywhere in the last 12 months. There is nobody in the world who is more worldly traveled right now than Cody Rhodes, except maybe for Ricochet. Otherwise, Cody Rhodes, he deserved the match because he's done it everywhere he's gone. So give him the match. This was a test to see if they could land in the US market, and it worked. Because people enjoyed the match. He put on a great performance. So if New Japan fans or New Japan talents or people in the back have a problem with it, deal with it. Cody Rhodes is amazing in the ring, and he deserved to be in the ring with one of the best wrestlers, if not the best wrestler in the world, Kazuchika Okada. I actually think he should have won the match. That's how I'd have booked it. I don't care that he's not a big enough star back in Japan. You know what you do? You have him win it on night one and have Kenny Omega take and challenge him the next night and take the title from him. He gets the win over Okada. Omega gets the belt back. Because why would Okada give Omega another shot? He beat him once and took him to a time limit draw the second time. He has no reason to face Omega again. But if Omega took the title from Cody Rhodes, now Okada could be the one giving chase, and it would build to a whole new set of matches. No, we got to worry about Cody Rhodes isn't a big enough star. Ridiculous. Global Force Wrestling has announced, along with Anthem, that they will be releasing a 4-part pay-per-view series called Amped Anthology, which is the episodes of GFW that they filmed when they first launched the company that never made it to television. These will be exciting to see. You'll see people who are now all over the world. You'll see, Gallows and Anderson. You'll see Magnus. You'll see all these talents who have done so many things in so many places since they recorded these, I want to say in 2014, 2015-ish. And now you're going to finally get to see those. So if you are a fan of the Global Force Wrestling product, or if you are curious about the product prior to its merger with Impact Wrestling, check that anthology out. It's going to be pretty special. I do have a few opinions real quickly on 205 Live. I have a problem. People probably have noticed that I don't pay a lot of attention or spend a lot of time on 205 Live on these episodes. You know why? Because once I covered the first episode back in February or January or whatever it was, I never had to cover one again. Because the matches are the exact same matches every week. How many times am I going to see Tony Nese go against Jack Gallagher? How many times do I need to see, Lince Dorado get beat by Neville? I don't need to see that every week. Or Cedric Alexander squash some guy. Or Rich Swann come out and defeat TJP, who suddenly has come to his senses and he's back to being a good guy. I don't understand the booking of it. I don't understand why we see the same matches every week with no creativity whatsoever. So I apologize. If you're a 205 Live fan, I support you being a fan because I want the brand to do well too. But I'm not going to give away a lot of precious time on the podcast for something that has very little future if they don't get going. I said earlier we would touch on Epico and Primo. Epico was on Smackdown Live. Primo was not. The rumor is that they asked for their release. It sounds like maybe only one of them may be getting their release. Epico at least showed up on Smackdown Live and took part in that U.S. title #1 Contenders Battle Royal. Good for him. Glad to see him get some screen time. I wish they got a whole lot more. Goldberg was interviewed this week, and he was asked about a potential return to WWE, and he did the same thing he says every time. For the right amount of money and for the right storyline, never say never. We've heard this 15 times since WrestleMania. Either commit to something or move on. Alright? Because last time you came back, I loved the Brock squash. I did. I actually enjoyed the Royal Rumble, but the WrestleMania thing was a joke. And the fact that you only wrestled 4 times and for a grand total of 15 minutes in 4 matches is pathetic. If you can't go, don't come back. But if you can go, by all means, come back, but don't talk about it. Get it done. Get something going. Goldberg versus Roman Reigns. I'm dying to see it. Speaking of matches I'm dying to see, the last tidbit I want to talk about this episode is Seth Rollins coming out, and somebody asked him about whether or not he would be able to wrestle The Rock. And his response on Twitter was very interesting in that he said WrestleMania 34 is only, I think he said, 8 months away, and he insinuated that he and The Rock may face off at WrestleMania. Now, I think that is such a stretch and probably never going to happen, but as soon as I heard him say it in his Twitter feed, I got very much intrigued. I think that would be a phenomenal match, one that people would truly enjoy, and The Rock giving Seth Rollins the right kind of rub could really set him up. I mean, not that Seth Rollins needs much help. He's pretty much there to begin with, but you can't get a bigger send-off than The Rock doing you a solid and putting you over. I hope we get to see it. That is all the time we have for this episode. Check back with us next time where we'll run down the latest wrestling news and rumors, and we have an episode coming up Saturday night going live at 9:05 where we will run down the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view, give you our predictions, and go over everything that happens between now and then. Special thanks as always to bensound.com and purpleplanet.com for producing all our music and sound effects used throughout today's show. Today's podcast was sponsored in part by Beazle Games. Bringing a new friend to family game night is easy with sketchy people. Showcase your artistic side in this new game from Beazle Games by going to www.frolifeplanning.com/fropodcast and clicking the link on the right hand side. And to AlleyRepair.com. Contact Alley Repair today for servicing of all of your classic skee-ball, pinball, and arcade game needs. Be sure to shoot over to our website at frolifeplanning.com for all of your higher education, college, university, new job path, whatever it is, educational needs, as Fro-Life Educational Planning is for today, for tomorrow, and for life with Fro-Life. I'm Fred Froelich, better known as Mr. Fro. I want to thank you for taking a few moments with us today, and if you're looking for more news and rumors in the world of professional wrestling, Google tsjsports.com/WWE for the latest articles on the world of professional wrestling. Until next episode, everyone, take care. Have a great night.